For our next video is tutorial on how to use sign requests. Sign request is used for sellers and buyers that are ready to sign a contract to purchase a property, or a seller, which is more common, to sell their property. So in this video, I'll show you how to upload your template and get it executed with your sellers to turn your lead into a deal. The first step is logging in. After you log in, you will see that our email will show in the top right section, and you can select My Documents. After selecting My Documents, you're able to pull up templates that have been pre-uploaded to our login system. And the first contract that you'll see is the purchase contract. It will say for house, but you are able to use this purchase contract for land as well. The other contracts, just to give a brief description, amendment of contract is a contract if there was a change in your initial contract. Termination of contract is if you are terminating the contract with the buyer or a seller due to maybe unable to perform the contract, maybe the expiration date or the option period or inspection period has expired, or any other reasons that we may need to cancel a contract. The next section, the last contract, is the assignment of contract. Excuse me. And the assignment of contract is for our buyers, so we can assign the contract to them to purchase our properties that we have under contract. So what we do to upload our purchase contract is hit Sign Request. After hitting Sign Request, you'll see the contract here that has been uploaded. If you and someone else, if you and the signer needs to sign, you will then select You and Others. If the signer needed to only sign, you would select Only Others. Or if we needed to just sign and no one else needed to sign, it would be Only Me. So in this case, we'll hit Me and Others. You'll see our email that's coming from. And this is where you put the person that you'd like to sign the contract. And I'll put myself as an example. All right, next thing you do is hit Sign and Send. Excuse me. After hitting Sign and Send, you're able to select each box that has been pre-filled. In this case, the purple boxes will be for us, and the other spaces will be for the seller. So taking a step back, if you wanted to prepare the document and change where someone's signing, or if someone needs to sign in a different place, or if you needed to add another seller, this is where you would do so. In the preparing section, you'll see the purple is for our signature and the orange is for our seller. So in this case, the seller would need to initial here and also initial the second page, and print, sign. We need their telephone number, email, and the date that they sign by a click of a button. If everything is in place and you don't need to move anything around, you will then fill out the contract with Sign and Send. All right, so next step is to select the box. This first line states this agreement is made on this day of this month in this year. So an example, today is the 22nd of January. We always fill it out in all caps locks. And let's just say this agreement was made between this line as the seller and us as the buyer. Let's just say the seller's name is Kelly Epperson. and us as the sellers. Hereby, this joint, hereafter jointly to be referred as the parties. So these are the parties in the contract, the seller and the buyer. The next section is the premises. The description of the premises is the property located at the property address. Let's just say 123 Main Street, Fort Worth, Texas, 76013. Insert. So the address of the property that we're doing a deal on. We are purchasing as is, unless we need to change that and make some kind of terms that we are purchasing for. So the purchase price of the property is the price that you have agreed on with the seller. Let's just say we agreed on $48,000 with the seller. The dollar sign's already added there for you. And this is the part where you want to confirm how much earnest money with your acquisitions manager or myself, and how much earnest money that we're putting down in the transaction. Typically, it's between $100 to $200. In some cases, sellers will negotiate a higher amount. Let's just say this particular instance is $150. The third line is going to be the total sales price cash. So how much of this $48,000 is going to be cash? Typically, the first and the third line will be the same amount. This line just states the earnest money. The next section is the terms. So of the applicable terms of this contract, closing costs, attorney fees, title fees, and closing costs will be paid by whom? This will always be initially buyer and seller. And what this is closing costs that you pay at the closing table when you're ready to close a property at the title company. The title company has fees and closing costs that are associated with the buyer and the seller. So when the buyer and the seller have agreed to a deal, they know that there will be fees and costs that will come out of their proceeds, which are closing costs. So if you did not negotiate on the phone with the seller and told them we're going to pay their closing costs, it would be buyer and seller. If you did tell a seller you're going to pay their closing costs, then the closing costs would be paid by the buyer. In a standard sale, it is buyer and seller. Any taxes? So currently, especially at the beginning of the year, we're doing a promotion that states that we're going to be taking care of taxes. If they have any taxes that, let's just say that was the reason, the selling point that they wanted to sell their property. If they've agreed to let us pay their taxes and do the deal, then we will put taxes paid by buyer. Otherwise, as a standard sale, when a seller sells a property, it is by the seller. Now, our goal is to close the property between 30 to 45 days. Typically, we put out 45 days on most cases. This is going to be something you want to go over with the acquisition manager or myself to confirm, are we going to close this thing in 30 days, less, 45 days, 60 days? Every deal is different. So you always want to specify with the acquisition manager or kind of a test based on what the seller's saying, how long that your days of ratification. And what the states is the seller and buyer will set a closing as soon as possible for both parties, but no later than 45 days after ratification, which is in this written agreement. So ratification date is the date that the buyer has signed. Our goal is always to have 30 days, but 45 days is, our goal is always to have 45 days, but 30 days, it looks better for us in the terms if a seller is negotiating a quicker close. We'll then go ahead and initial this line. At the bottom of each page, there's a place for your initial, for my initials, So what you do is you select, hit the sign, and always hit the pre-selected initials. Save and insert. All right, so here, earnest money will be held in escrow by our buyer's closing attorney. And what the closing attorney is the title company. Our title company is Allegiance Title, located at 101 Summit Avenue, Fort Worth, Texas, 76102. Boom. All right, so that's our title company. This is where you go to close out the property with the closing attorneys. This is going to be the inspection period. The inspection period does not pass buyer standards. Buyer may terminate this agreement written notice to the seller within this many days. Typically, we have 20 business days. And what 20 business days is about 30 days total on the calendar. So our goal is to put 20 business days of this contract and ratification agreement is where the earnest money will not be submitted to the seller. So we put it in the title company, but in the event that we are before the inspection period expires, we are able to pull that earnest money out and send a cancellation of agreement, termination of agreement. So, and then keep in mind, since this is 20 business days, you always want to make sure you have at least 45 days or more on the closing. So it makes sense. Otherwise, it would be 30 days and 30 days for the option, which doesn't make sense. And if you have a 30-day closing, a good rule of thumb is about 14 business days for the inspection period, if there's a 30-day. Next section, seller will provide permission for us to enter the property. We must have a reasonable notice to the seller, just respectfully. Key shall be provided at the date that we sign if the property is vacant. Any fixtures, attachments, debris in this property not removed. Day of closing will become ownership of the buyer. And other terms, if there's anything that has been negotiated or anything that is to be added or taken away from this contract, our standard agreement, then we'll put it in the other terms section. Otherwise, just put NA for non-applicable. So wrapping up to the end, this is where our company name is and our signature. You'll already have a pre-signed signature, and you can adjust it by selecting the arrows and making it sizable to fit the line. But my signature will be ready and pre-filled for you to just click, sign, and select the signature and adjust it to the line. Lastly is the buyer initial on the second page and finalize. In the event you finalize this contract, you're able to monitor the contract in the My Documents section. So let's just say I sent that contract out. I can go ahead and select it and see if that client, which was an example myself, has viewed the agreement. So since we didn't send that one out, this is not a good example. Let me give you a live contract. Here's one on Elm Leaf. We sent this out to a seller, and looks like we've signed it, which is in green. And then the seller has received it January 22nd at 10:40 this morning. And then in another example, I'll show you where a seller has viewed it, like so. Let's say Ghent. All right, so in this contract, we sent out the agreement, we signed it, and looks like that person, which was another example, viewed the contract but did not sign it yet. So you can see when they last viewed it every single time that they view it. In the event your contract is signed, it will look like so. It will show signed in green. You can select it and see that both parties have signed, Mr. Brian Hembry as well as ourselves. You can also open the document to view it. Boom. So we signed it. And then you can also download the document if you need to have it for your personal desktop, and then delete the document if need be, if you need to correct and do another one. You are not able to do any corrections to the template, so if you do send out a wrong field that was filled out or something incorrect, just hit delete the document and quickly redo it. And this concludes the sign request tutorial.